Welcome back to the 411 on Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Blake Lovell. With me once again is our friend Andrew Thompson from Post Wrestling and Andrew Thompson Interviews on YouTube, which Andrew had a great one here recently with none other than Double J, Jeff Jarrett. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but Andrew is funny. We were laughing before we started this up. I always say the last time I went to get you on the podcast, I was like, all right, we need to have Andrew on. I had something else in mind, and then that's when WWE released all the people on April 15th. And now, this week, I was going to reach out to you and be like, all right, let's talk about something with Andrew. And then, what do you know? More releases. And it's just like, for some reason, Andrew, every time I get ready to reach out to you to have you on the podcast, people get released. Hopefully that is not a recurring theme. Hopefully neither of us are going to get released anytime soon, but here we are talking about releases once again in wrestling. It is a wild, wild world right now, I guess, in professional wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that this crop of talents that got released today, I don't want to compare like as far as I'm gonna compare it as far as like I guess star power and more so of like consistent TV time. I think is the fair thing to compare it to the last group of talents that unfortunately got released. Like I'm looking at Braun Strowman, who was literally in the WWE title match last month. You got Aleister Black, who they literally just brought back, and he was about to. He said on his Twitch stream that he was about to start feuding with Big E. You got Lana, who has been on TV almost every week, for God knows how long, like and I no, I mean that in a way like I genuinely can't remember the last time she wasn't on TV. And then you got Ruby Riott, who a lot of people speak very highly of. She really didn't, really didn't get like a full go around in WWE, and of course Buddy Murphy, like, and I got a lot to say about him, but I'm gonna wait till we come across that. But yeah, this was definitely unexpected and very surprising.
It was for sure, and obviously we start with Braun Strowman because, like you said, we go back to the recent round of releases. You can even go back to last year. And as we've said before, I mean, WWE's done this for years. Like there have been releases, we know that. But I think you go back to last year, right after the pandemic starts, that sort of rubs people the wrong way at the beginning. And then, of course, as we said, you go back to, less than 2 months ago now. Samoa Joe, the Iconics, all of those released in there in that group. But Braun Strowman is the biggest name, I think, from a standpoint of we've seen how he's been used. You talk about sort of Lana and where she's been, but like Braun Strowman has been featured in that main event level, even if some of the stuff he's done, maybe are not to that tip top level, but like he has been featured as sort of that kind of guy for several years now. And I tell you, Andrew, the one thing I brought up today, and I put this on Twitter, I still think back to whenever that was, 2017, maybe early 18.
Me and you talked about that the last
right.
Before. We talked about this before. Yeah,
it's just like that guy was absolutely at the top. Like he was arguably the most over guy in the company. Like Roman Reigns, we know, like he was, that's when the Lesnar was like all this stuff. But I mean, he was as hot as he could have ever been, and the fact is they just did not want to go that entire way with him, as they've gone with other, baby faces, heels, whatever in the past. They just did not want to take that next step with him. And I think from there, he never really got on to that level again. He goes to teaming with Nicholas at WrestleMania and winning the tag titles. And, of course, has all this just, wild stuff with Bray Wyatt and everything. But it's just like, I feel like, and look, I think we're having different conversations here. Like, again, you could play the what if game all you want, but I still think back and I'm like, for them releasing him today, that's the first thing I thought of was like, what if like they decided to do that, right? Like in 2017, they make him the guy. Where do things go from there? I don't know that it changes anything. I'm not saying he would have held the title for a year or two or anything like that, but I just think back to that. I'm like, that to me felt like that turning point for him in WWE where they pretty much decided he's going to be our giant, but we're not willing to make him our giant champion as the top giant that we have, just because for whatever reason they did not decide to go that route.
Yeah, like, and I hate to bring this up, considering that, that it was I'm pretty sure you remember the comment that Braun made on social media
Yeah.
about independent wrestlers, and that whole ordeal right there. So it is ironic to see what could happen going from here, and him possibly being an independent wrestler, and how he'll be I guess welcomed onto the independent
Yeah, a
scene. I
lot of
think that'll
people
be
have brought that up, yeah.
yeah, I think that'll be something very interesting. But I do, well, like I said, me and you have had this conversation before on this podcast about, I think it was No Mercy 2017 when he faced Brock. Everybody was like, Strowman is the guy, definitely should be the guy to beat Brock for the Universal title. He was arguably the most popular star in the whole company. He literally got over just by beating Roman Reigns up, like literally, and they didn't go with him. And I don't think he ever really really recovered from that. And but I don't think it was just that. It was like the string of consecutive title losses that he had. Like I remember the SummerSlam 2017. That was the 4-way for the Universal title. He lost that. He didn't get pinned, but he lost. No Mercy. We just talked about that. He lost that. He had the triple threat at the Royal Rumble 2018 with Brock and Kane. Lost that, and then he had the Crown Jewel match, the one when he lost in
Yep.
like 2 minutes to Brock, and then Baron Corbin interfered, and it was actually kind of funny because the former WWE writer Kazim Famayude had spilled the beans on this podcast one time. I think it was a couple weeks back, or like a month,
Yeah,
like
I
early
remember
early
that.
May or so.
Yep.
Yeah, he said Braun was supposed to win the Universal title at the Crown Jewel show, and like they had a whole Monday Night Raw planned out with him as champion, and then like before the match started, I guess plans just immediately, just changed just like that. And then, they had to rewrite the entire show with Brock still champion. So that, like, I don't know what it was, man, but it's just like they never really got behind Strowman, and I don't think they ever really, like, even he was, could say he's Universal Champion, but that was only there because Roman didn't want it. He didn't want to
Yep.
be there in the pandemic. So I don't know. They just never really got behind Strowman, man. Like it seemed like they had the chance to capitalize and make him a real megastar, but they just never did it. So now we're at this point, and like you said, I don't think he ever really fully recovered.
No, they sort of put him in the, I mean, different circumstances, but they put him in the Kane Big Show role where it's like, well,
Hmm.
he's a giant, we can keep him over just because he's a giant, he's a monster, but we don't feel like that, he's going to be that guy that we want in that spot. And I just, yeah, I always think back to that, and I'm like, man, he was that close to maybe something just being completely different. And like I said, maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe we're still in the same situation, and you don't really know where things go from there. But at one point they had this guy turning over ambulances and everything, weeks upon weeks. And hey, it worked. Like at the time, people, were like, I don't know, this is maybe hokey or whatever, but like it worked, and it worked beautifully. But it will be interesting to see what's next for Braun Strowman because, as others have pointed out, this is a guy who. What, Andrew? Not, I mean, this has been several weeks ago, a month ago, whatever. Like, he basically said, I will only ever wrestle for WWE. Like,
Yeah.
he made that statement. And as we know, there are a lot of people have made statements before like that. But still, it's an interesting situation. And, I also think, too, I mean, this is a guy you mentioned. I mean, he's been very open about the struggles he had not long ago, sort of not
Yeah,
sure if
yeah.
WWE, believed in him. And he was having some issues, mental health wise and
Hmm.
everything he went through with that. This to me is obviously a setback for anyone. And obviously you hope, for good things that come out of this for him. But I just do think it's a situation where it's going to be interesting to see what's next for him because, does this guy really? I mean, and people have brought up like I just don't see. It's great to think of, right? Like him over there just slapping it up with Ishii and all this other stuff. But it's like I don't see Braun Strowman in that
Yeah.
setting. But I guess it's interesting to see. For him, it's very fascinating because he did make that statement. Yes, he can always go back on that, but I do wonder, kind of what's next for him because it's going to be very curious to see what happens there.
I could definitely see him like maybe possibly landing at Impact Wrestling, like something like what Cass is doing right now. Like, dude, did you hear the promo that Cass cut on
Yes,
last week's Impact show?
I saw
Dude,
that. Yeah,
I was like, there it is. Like you see what I'm saying? Like he got it. He clicking right now. And I feel like if Strowman can like get an environment where he's not so micromanaged, and you got to be big man roar 24/7. You know what I'm saying? I feel like he can, do some things. And I don't know about New Japan. I don't know about him going in these environments that's like mostly wrestling based, like, just pure wrestling. Like I can't see him, but I can definitely see him in an Impact where it's like, more of the character stuff, is more adjacent to the WWE product in terms of like mixing entertainment and the in-ring stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because in AEW, and obviously that's the one everyone turns to, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in a second with others. But it's like, I mean, AEW has Miro, they have Lance Archer, they have Brian Cage, they have Will
Yeah.
Hobbs. You go up and down the line. There's just they have a lot of these monster-esque type guys already, and sure, from a profile standpoint, like this is a guy who has been a star in WWE, and obviously getting him, you bring in an audience there, but I don't know either if that's one where you necessarily look at that. And from the money standpoint, I mean, financially, we know if that's one of the reported, rumors and reasons why maybe they make this move is because of Strowman's contract and the amount of money. I don't think if you're Strowman, you're not going to get that money probably anywhere else. But I don't know if AEW is going to, spend that kind of money either for a company that's kind of where they're at, and they've obviously made some significant signings recently as well, and I'm sure there are more to come when we see some of these 90-day non-compete clauses kind of come up. But certainly, Andrew, the next one, Aleister Black. I mean, this is a guy, and you want to talk about, this is where I think, and I know we're going to have this conversation, but there are the speculation out there, and we'll hold it off a bit on the potential, could WWE actually sell this company? Is Vince McMahon looking to get out, all this other stuff? But it's like, to me, this is one of those where this to me is like, man, this feels like it came together so quickly here. Even though, like, if we would have said that a month ago, we probably would have been like, okay, well, I get it. Like, they were not going to do anything with this guy. He's been sitting there for all this time. If they released him on April 15th, I don't know that a lot of us would have been surprised. But now it's like, you bring him back, you put him through these vignettes, he's there. And as you said, like, he's got this thing with Big E, and you're thinking, okay, well, they're going with Aleister Black versus Big E. This is going to be the first big program back for him. And then all of a sudden, he disappears from SmackDown, and it's like some weeks he's there, some weeks he's not after they re-debut him, and now he's released. It's just, you feel like there has to be more to the story, but I mean, I don't know. There's a lots of different things you could say about Aleister Black, because I think for a lot of people, myself included, I wrote an entire article basically, built around Aleister Black a month ago saying, who are the most underutilized stars that they have, and he was on that list, as was someone else we're going to talk about here in a second. But it's just like, I don't know where things went wrong there. I feel like after the Zelina Vega thing, maybe a lot of people weren't very optimistic with what that was going to look like in the first place. But as soon as you get that optimism back, now he's released.
Bro, I feel like I like, just like you said, like I just can't pinpoint where the Aleister Black Raw / SmackDown run went wrong. Like I remember when he was doing the stuff with Kevin Owens on Raw. Like it was so, like, I don't want to use the word weird. It just didn't click. Like they were trying to like make him like a bad guy, and it was just like it just, that Aleister Black, he seems like one of those characters, like the character Aleister Black. It just never seemed like he was one of those guys. Like he wasn't looking to be adored by the fans, but he also wasn't trying to get booed by the fans. Like he was just doing his own thing, and they tried to like make him out to be like this menacing guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think the thing that made it click in NXT was, I guess it was just more organic. Like he wasn't looking for the adulation of the people, but he also wasn't trying to appease them as well. Like he was just going at anybody and whoever was just in his way. That was just who was next. Like it could be Almas, it could be Gargano, it could be whoever it may be, and he was just going straight at them. And it could have been Adam Cole, like how it was in NXT. Like I don't know how they didn't find a way to properly get him into the fold. Like I remember when he first came up, like everybody was thinking, U.S. champion, Intercontinental champion, something along those lines. He did the thing with Ricochet, coming out of the, because I think they won the Dusty Classic, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they won the Dusty Classic, and then it was just like I just can't really pinpoint like where things went left. Like it seemed like he was one of those guys that was bound to find success. on Raw, SmackDown, and then it just never clicked. And we've seen that bunch of times. Like we've heard the same song and dance so many times with people that come up from NXT and they had these great runs in NXT and then they come up and they just fall flat. We've heard this before and we've seen this before. It's not anything surprising, but like you said, it just is very surprising that he was literally just on TV a few weeks ago and then now he's released and he already went and did his post WWE release interview. So
Yes. Yeah, he spoke for quite a while on the Twitch stream there. We talked about with Selena Vega, and that was another strange thing, right? It's like there were just reports
yeah,
a couple weeks ago that she was back, like doing stuff at the Performance Center and all this, and it's like, well, where do you go from here? And it's just the Aleister Black thing, like you said, you're always hesitant now to say can't miss sort of people when they come up from NXT. You're like they can't screw this up, but we've just seen so many instances of that happening. I mean, for example, Shayna Baszler. I think that's for me, after coming off of what we just saw, she loses the match to Reginald and all this. I mean, it's just like you could have never expected that if you're someone watching NXT and then you kind of look at where things are now. But it's like you look at Aleister Black and he comes up. He has such a different look, such a different character. He gets stuck in a room essentially. Like that's what it came down to. They stick him in a room where it's like this guy has no idea how to get out. He's waiting and waiting and waiting. They had I think it was him and Cesaro had that match. I want
yeah,
to say that was Extreme Rules 2019. Not a long match at all, but it's like those two just it was a quick match, but you're thinking at the time you're like, why are these two in the spot and not like in the main event? Like why are these guys sitting here getting 7 minutes or whatever they got? I don't even know how much long it was, but I knew it wasn't very long. But you're just like, that's what you look at. Of course, we're seeing with Cesaro now, it's starting to get better, but with him, I don't know what it was. And I think, for some people, it may be just as simple as saying, well, Vince didn't get the character. Here's my thing. It's your job to make either Vince get the character or make the audience get the character. If you don't understand it, it's your job to present it in a way that people will understand what it's supposed to be. And I don't know, maybe it is one where, maybe the character was just something that they were never going to fully get behind on the main roster. They felt like it was too whatever the word. But
right.
he's the exact type of guy with that type of character. I mean, you put him in AEW, you put him, Impact, wherever. I feel like those places understand sort of the essential nature of having a character like that. I mean, NXT, right? I mean, there was obviously an understanding in NXT of what this guy could do, but for whatever reason, as we've said with so many of these people we've talked about that have been released, not just this year, go back to last year and beyond. For some reason, some of these people just don't stick on the main roster. And I think in this instance, sometimes maybe it is the doing of the performer and maybe they just don't adapt and do different things. But I don't know, I look at this from the outside, I'm like, I don't know how, if you're Aleister Black, I don't know what you could have done other than what you did, because I think everyone looked at him as a future star. And now, to kind of see the lack of use there, they didn't utilize him properly at all. It feels like to me just a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. It definitely was a huge missed opportunity by WWE. But like when I like think about creative, like I have this different outlook now. Like just because I listened to a Jimmy Jacobs interview. It was like an in-depth interview he
Yeah.
did about recently about creative and like how it basically works there, man. And like it just really changed my whole perspective of how I view creative, WWE creative, and how I refer to them or speak about them, because he was just like everybody in that room, the writers that he's referring to, the writers who are there, who most people probably don't know about. Like he said, every single last one of them are very like extremely talented, and they have ideas that you would look at and be like, why isn't this on TV? But Jim, this was the thing. He said, when you're writing for WWE, you are writing for the audience of one,
Yeah.
and that individual is Vince McMahon, and that's just what it is. You can go there and have this idea that you think that that you want to do, or it might be great, and it might be the greatest thing ever. But if Vince doesn't go with it and he's not feeling it, it's not gonna happen. So the writers in WWE, they cater to Vince McMahon's mindset. They try to write as if, okay, will Vince like this? Would he like this? Is he not gonna like that? And I mean, it shows a lot. It really shows a lot in a lot of things. And I don't think that's a healthy way to go about things as far as like your product, because that's not helping anybody. That's not helping, I don't think that's not helping anybody. Like we've seen this countless times. And like I just think that the structure needs to change. And but it all obviously, that's all gonna come down to if Vince is, staying around as far as like him, continuing to lead the creative and stuff like that. But yeah, man, like I don't know how they miss that bad with Aleister Black. Like he was just different. Like I feel like when you have a talent like that who looks completely different from everybody and has a very unique in ring style, like and even like I thought that things were really going to pick up for Aleister Black after he did the stuff with Buddy Murphy. Like, cause those two had some like really good matches. Like, and I just wish they
Yeah.
could have had more time to work together. Like outside of the 10-minute, 8-minute stuff. Like I feel like they could have put on some classics. But yeah, man, like it's like as far as potential landing spots for Aleister Black, I know everybody like immediately points to AEW, but I see like a Ring of Honor is having fans back
Yeah.
in July, so maybe that'd be something attractive. Not competing in front of nobody or empty building. They'll have people in attendance. I'm trying to think of like other places I could see him. Like I could see him, and I think the AEW comes up a lot because that's the second biggest wrestling company in the U.S. So of course that's gonna come up, and people want to see what talents do outside of WWE bubble. Because we even looking at a John Moxley, right? Moxley has like shedded anything
Yeah.
WWE like about like Dean Ambrose like isn't even like a thing. Like
He's not
it's
wearing
like
gas masks anymore,
yeah.
and doing that stuff.
Bro, no, wait, do you remember on Raw, that episode of Raw when they had Moxley get the shot in his ass from the doctor? Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean
Like,
that stretch for him, like that is that's what you just said. I think that's a perfect way to sort of point that out. Is you think about a guy goes from that to what we just saw at Double or Nothing, coming out to Wild Thing and like the
uh,
crowd. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So yes, that is a perfect example of what you can sort of see the discrepancy for how you're viewed in one company versus another company. Because that is a big difference. But I mean, I'm with you. I think, like you said on Aleister Black, I mean, he's not going to have any shortage of options. I think of all these guys, and this is not a knock on Strowman. I think Black is the one who's going to have the most options in terms of. I mean, I imagine literally everyone is going to at least see what opportunity there may be there, knowing that. I mean, this is a guy with so much potential, and as you said, I mean, I think the natural tendency is to think about AEW first, but that is also a roster, as we've seen, that is very, very loaded with talent. And if you're someone who is out of this WWE bubble now and you want to become the guy, I have no doubt that he could do that in AEW. He could become one of the, better stars. But if you could also do that, become the guy in Ring of Honor or Impact or all these other places. So he will have no shortage of options for sure. So he is someone that, yeah, he's got a bright future, I think, no matter
like
where he lands. So,
New Japan could really use
yes.
somebody like him, like really, because New Japan, but they having a rough go right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Like they having it rough, like
They could
especially with
use
the
a lot
Osprey
right
stuff.
now. Yeah.
They got the state of emergency in Tokyo and other areas of Japan right now. And of course they have announced multiple talents tested positive for COVID. Like so, I remember Fit Finley had kind of spilled the beans about David Finley and Jay White trying to get out of Japan. Like I'm talking about like
Yeah.
catch a flight out, but they like a multitude of talents had tested positive. So they all had to go and stay in quarantine for like 2 weeks and stuff like that. So New Japan, they got it rough right now. So I think somebody that they need somebody like with this big, big name, and I'm like another person that's immediately come to my mind, like as I was literally just thinking about that. I was thinking about Daniel Bryan, because like I don't think anybody knows see that's why I like Bryan, because you would literally never know what he's doing. Like he doesn't like put it like anything cryptic up on social media. Like
Right.
he's like very to himself, and I think it's gonna be exciting to see where he pops up next. Like, because I really can't call it. I can see him leaving, but I can also see him staying. I can see him popping up on that first SmackDown with fans for sure. But I can also see him popping up somewhere else. So Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, man. But I definitely think Aleister Black would be a perfect fit in New Japan.
Yeah, that's the thing is sometimes, in a normal scenario, we could probably look at New Japan and which obviously the rumors have been out there about WWE and New Japan and all that. We could spend a ton of time on that, I'm sure. But it's like, this is not a normal circumstance for
Yeah,
people wanting to go to New Japan. So it's that's kind of you place them behind everyone else at this point. Even, things could look different in 90 days, sure. But I think right now, as we've seen, it's been a very rocky situation there. But we'll see what happens with Aleister Black. Some of the others, I mean,
Oh yeah,
Lana.
I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you, Blake, real quick. Who you think taking the IWGP World Title, Shingo or Okada?
Well, I think the safe move, and this is not again, this is not a knock on Shingo. Shingo's one of my probably top 5 wrestlers right now in the world. Like he is probably, if you ask me, who are the guys that I would probably put in my top 5 that are just absolute must watch for me every single time, like Shingo's in that group. But I think for them, they have to be looking at this thinking the guy to steer the ship at this point is the guy
Yeah,
we've turned to
yeah,
so many times.
yeah.
And I
No, you're
think,
right. You're right.
I just think for them, again, knowing that they have no idea what the future holds in terms of, how many shows they're going to be able to run, where they're going to be running, when, all that stuff. I just think the safe move is to put the belt on Okada and go from there and see what happens. I just, because too, we have to think, I mean, they're going to, man, New Japan has been hit so hard by this in terms of you just look at the past, what is 15 months now, I guess, at this point. It's like you think about all the switching, and I mean, they've got Dominion coming up in what, less than a week now, and we
Mm.
still don't know. Like, what, I mean, we have the card, right? But it's like, there's just a lot of unknowns. So I think that's what they'll do. I think they'll put it on Okada. But listen, I'd be thrilled to see Shingo because I've said it for 2 or 3 years now. I'm like, this guy is the guy in the future. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I know he's kind of older when you think about it, but I mean, he's so good, and
Mm.
I would love to see that. As maybe Shingo gets his crowning moment at a Wrestle Kingdom or something. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think right now they put it on Okada and go from there is my guess. But so we'll see. I guess what happens.
Nah, I think you're right. Like I want Shingo to win. I really do. But like the business portion of my brain is like you gotta go Okada because it's like that's the guy, bro. That's the
Yeah.
guy. Like that's the guy you fall back on when it goes left. If you don't have any immediate thing for him right now, like I'm talking about, like it's like you can always put the title on him. But I mean, if push comes to shove, that's the guy. I'm pretty sure if WWE took the title off Roman Reigns and somebody got hurt and they had to vacate the title, now they probably would go back to Roman Reigns 9 times out of
Yes.
10. So like like, you and I don't think anybody's gonna complain about Okada being champion, but I just think like when you like so when I see Shingo, I immediately think about Ishii sometimes because I feel like there's been so many times in the past where they could have took Ishii there, man. They could have took him there, but they just didn't. And I don't want them to do that to Shingo. And you mentioned like I think Shingo's like 37, but like
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Right. No.
He's still walking around knocking people's heads off like it's nothing. And yeah, I want Shingo to win, but I think Okada will end up taking the title.
Yeah, I feel like they were working towards that. Even if Osprey wouldn't have gotten hurt, I feel like they were working towards Okada and Osprey at some point. It felt like
Yeah,
just based on
that was going to happen
yeah,
at the Wrestle Grand Slam
right.
show at the Dome.
So I feel like that was kind of the direction, and I feel like they'll just put it on there. If Shingo's gonna like, you want that to be, I think, sort of a big crowning moment. And I don't know, like we said, with the restrictions and everything, I don't know if that's what you want to do anyway. So put it on Okada, see where things go from there, and you can always, if you take the belt off of Okada, what's it gonna do? It's not gonna hurt him at all. So he's
Hey,
he's a
I
made
was
man.
about to say, did you know that 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 I guess enforcement is the word that the fans that attend New Japan shows, like they at first they were told that they had to not cheer and stuff like that to, I guess, further prevent the
Right.
spread or not spread the virus or whatever like that. But like I heard Rocky Romero said that that hasn't been in place for like quite some time now, and they've just opted not to do that.
Hmm.
Like, and I was like, what like can you imagine telling fans of the I was like, bro, like that's so like respectful and
Yeah.
like that like for because they he said it was more of a thing they just don't want to lose wrestling, so it's like they
Yeah.
just choosing not to participate in that manner. I was like, I just think that's like the coolest thing in the world, but I just wanted to say
No, I'm with you. Like you said, could you imagine trying to do that?
that.
It's just that's a hard ask, and yes, for them to be able to do so, it's an impressive feat, without question. I mean, obviously, Andrew, we sort of talked about. I mean, Lana. I think that's one that was probably inevitable at some point. I think you got to give her a lot of credit. I know she hasn't always
Yeah,
been the darling of the wrestling community or anything from an actual wrestling standpoint and all that and she's someone that, my goodness, as you said, she's been on WWE programming for so long now, and you think
for
about
years, bro,
like all the different
years.
characters like she is or roles she's been put in. There's been a lot of them, but you look at her, I think it was inevitable at some point she was going to reunite with Miro, and I would just assume that her going to AEW is just I don't know how she's used there or anything, but I think that's a natural sort of situation there. But I want to tie her into Ruby Riott as well, because as others have pointed out, this WWE Women's Tag Team division, which was already very thin and not in any way booked as a priority. Um, I mean, Lana and Naomi were teaming. Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan, who, as I go back to Aleister Black, Ruby Riott's the one I said that I felt like has just been the usage of her, like, to me, and I think we probably talked about this a little bit, Andrew, when we mentioned kind of post WrestleMania. Like, the crowd was all about the Riot Squad. Like, they loved him. In that, whatever it was, the tag team turmoil match or whatever that was. Like, I think Natalya and Tamina ended up winning, and that's worked out, I think, pretty well for the most part. But it's like you could tell the crowd really wanted to invest, like, in Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan. And I think Ruby Riott's another one. When the Riot Squad started, yes, it was a very sort of strong start for them. You still had Sarah Logan and all that there, but I just think that she's someone that they also did not necessarily utilize as well. I know she had injury situations too, and that's not WWE's fault. But I do feel like for both of those, Lana, not really a surprise. I think to see her eventually, exit the company, even if it was going to be released when contract's up or whatever. Even though I want to say, didn't she just like her contract got either extended or there was a lot of money put into it like a couple years ago? So she had a bit of a longer contract, I want to say, but I just think with those two, that puts the if you're trying to push a women's tag team division, good luck, because you just lose two more teams out of this. Now they'll repackage, and to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if they're just like, all right, let's put Liv Morgan and Naomi as a team now, and let's just throw them together. But it's just like, I mean, I think both of them, it's going to be interesting to see what's next, because I think there's a lot of potential for both, even if maybe they're different companies or sort of different ways they're used.
Yeah, I think it was back in what you just mentioned about Lana signing a new extension. She I think that was like November 2019. She had announced that
Right.
she signed a multi-year deal with WWE, for what I'm assuming is probably a good little piece of change, man. But yeah, like Lana, you know what, bro? Like I'm not gonna sit here and bash that lady, bro. I'm not doing that. Like look, I've seen some of these videos, of her training with, Natalia and stuff like that, and training with Liv, and trying to improve and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I was never like the big fan of Lana in ring. Like I thought she was a great asset to the Rusev character during the early stages of his career, and even through the Rusev day stuff. I thought that stuff was grade A that they were doing. But yeah, I didn't really care for her in the ring, but I can just I can respect somebody for wanting to try. You know what I'm saying? Like she
Yeah.
she tried, bro. So I'm not gonna sit here and go in on her or nothing like that.
And
But
she's not going to turn down. I mean, if they're like, "Hey, we want to use you in the ring, we want to make you like," if I'm in that
right,
role, I'm not turning that down. I don't care if my skill set's great or not. Like, I'm like, "Oh, sure, put me out there. Like, I'll try to get
right,
better," and that's what she did. So
yeah, she tried, and like so the thing was like I mean like I guess I wasn't as surprised to see her name right there because it felt like they just like but when you look at the people that got released today, it was just like they never used any of these. I mean, aside from Strowman, like Strowman was the one that like really surprised me because like I thought that he was gonna be like if anybody on this list, I thought he was gonna be like a lifer, to be
yeah,
honest with you.
yeah,
And speaking of Strowman, just real quick to get back to Strowman, I think he gonna be in the NWA.
That's
I'm gonna
not a
call that.
bad. Yeah, I
I
mean
think it'll be
that's.
an NWA because you know they like the big guys. So
Hey,
I definitely
Billy Corgan. It was. I want to say it was either Tuesday. Did he have the interview where he basically came out and said, "Hey,
yeah.
we're gonna eventually break out of this tier and we're gonna make a run at the top." And I'm just thinking, all right, well, hey, I'm all for it. Listen, I say that
Yeah.
all the time. Like competition is a good thing, as we've seen with WWE at times. If you don't have competition, it's very easy to hit autopilot. But I think we have more competition than ever, and there's more opportunity. I think in terms of some of these companies. But like for the NWA. I mean, hey, if you're Billy Corgan and you've got the cash and you're now, they've got their stuff on Fight TV and everything, and it seems like they're trying to raise their profile. I mean, that was a confident statement, but hey, if they've got the cash and they want to try to bring in some of these people, which as we've seen, they brought in different people and they've worked, had different relationships. Go
They
for
got
it.
bro. Did you see they got Kylie Ray coming in?
Yeah, I saw she's going to be coming back, and
Bro, they did like no promotion for that. I'm like, like, I'm
that
like
has been a struggle. I will say that. That's one area where I don't know that they've been great at, but I don't know
bro,
if
like,
that's, I don't know.
like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. Half the time, I don't even know what the hell going on Power. Like, they don't tweet anything. Cause they don't put any graphics up. Like, I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like,
Yeah,
Kylie Ray has. How long has Kylie Ray been out of the business, bro? From
I
like
was
since
going to
like
say it's
October
been a while.
last
Yeah.
year. Like, how did you not promote that? I would be blasting that all over social media. It's like they like randomly announced that she was gonna be on the card. I'm like, okay, yeah, y'all just randomly bullcat. They got JTG coming in. Like I'm like what like, but that's a whole different topic. But going back to Lana, yeah, I think the obvious thing that a lot of people point to is her being paired with Miro. But like, dude, Miro, did you hear those reactions that he was getting?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, see, when I thought about that, I was thinking about how good he's doing on his own. Like, he's not this. Miro is not this, guy who how he's presented in previous years when he was with Lana, like he can't talk for himself or something. Like, dude,
Yeah.
we've literally seen this dude do his own thing. Like, but you know what? I'm not gonna sit here and say that Lana wouldn't be a great addition to the Miro character, but I just feel like he doesn't need her. Like he doesn't. And Lana, she I know she's done like acting stuff and she got like other ventures outside of pro wrestling. Like, so I'm pretty sure that she can do other stuff outside of, being involved in wrestling. But as far as her being paired with Miro, it's like I just don't think Miro need her right now. I just don't think that that's something that's necessary unless you just want to relive or try to rehash or recreate what has already been done. And as far as Ruby Riott goes, like the women's tag team division in WWE, like I don't know what the hell they got going on. Like they split up the Iconics, like which was I don't know what the point of that was because obviously both of them ended up getting released and they really didn't do much of anything coming out of their split. Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan seemed like one of those teams that was like surefire to win the women's tag team titles at some point. I thought they should have won it at WrestleMania. To be honest with you, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I thought that they
Yeah.
should have won. But yeah, man, Ruby, like you probably seen it a lot on Twitter. Like she was obviously like very beloved by her fellow people
Yeah, absolutely.
on the roster, and like some of the stuff that she's done, like throughout her career, like when she was in Shimmer and stuff like that. I think I'm trying to remember some of the other promotions that she's worked for, but Ruby is like really really good in the ring, and I just don't think she just ever had the chance to like fully show that, like but I think that she could she's gonna land somewhere. Like, man, you know what, I'm gonna call her right now. I think Ruby will be in the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship tournament as a
Yeah,
surprise
that's not a
entrant.
bad one.
Yeah, I definitely think she might land there. And bro, Ring of Honor, they like like making like some plays. Like they got we
Yeah.
talked about, we got the Best in the World show coming up. They got the people they got set for this women's tournament. They got Allison Kay, Trisha Dora. They got like a solid crop of names set for that tournament. And people who we seen like on AW the Dark and on Elevation and in Impact. Like, so yeah, it's options out there for these people, man. Like that's why I wasn't too like I guess wound up about it. Like, of course you don't want to hear about nobody losing their job, but like just thinking about like I feel like the pro wrestling business, like once we fully get out of this pandemic 100%, like the business is gonna be booming.
Yeah, it is without question. Partnerships and everything you can have and all that. And I just think that there's so many different ways, you can find different options and that kind of stuff to work with. And I just, you look at it from these. I mean, as you see, a lot of people sort of said, this is a situation where you fully expect a lot of these people to bounce back, find a job, pretty easily. I mean, really, just when you think about all the options as we've talked about that are out there, and you have to believe that's the case for these type of talents. All right, Murphy, I'm going to give you the floor. I know, Murphy's someone we've seen. I mean, we talked about him with Aleister Black, and this is a guy that, I mean, for the wrong reasons. Like, it's like you're going to think about this guy, and you're thinking, how in the world, does he wind up kissing Rey Mysterio's daughter in the middle of the ring? And that's the storyline that this guy winds up in, knowing kind of
I
the
forgot
type of
all about
wrestler.
that.
Well, there's a lot of those we could probably say, I guess, over the past several years, but that's something I still think back on. I'm like, did that really happen? Yeah, I guess it did. So,
Man, okay, so out of everybody on this list that got released today, when people immediately go to the who's going to AEW, if I'm Tony Khan, Murphy is the guy I'm looking at. Like, I like Aleister Black. I like everybody else. I like Ruby Riott. I think, you know what? Let me not. I think Ruby Riott could be a asset to AEW's women's division. I'm not.
agreed. Yeah.
But Buddy Murphy, that's the guy like that I'm looking at. Like, I need him. I'm getting him because he hasn't been on WWE TV that much, right? So he's not like, I mean, of course he's still an ex WWE guy, but he hasn't been the focal point, and he had stretches where he was consistently on TV, but that was a while ago, so people kind of forgot. And now it's just of the mindset that he just hasn't been on TV and hasn't been on for a while. Nobody even like really remembers outside of what you just brought to my head, which I tried to forget him being in a storyline relationship with Rey Mysterio's daughter, and then he became Rey's stepson for like 2 weeks, which was which was which is which is ridiculous. But uh little Murphy Mysterio.
Yeah.
But bro, Murphy is like he is so precise in the ring. Like he reminds me of Pac in a lot of ways. Like everything they do like looks perfect. It's like they wrestle like they hate making any type of mistakes in the ring. Like I love watching him and Pac in the ring. Like it's like everything they do is so clean. And like Murphy wrestles the same way. And I think like, but do you remember that match, that banger match, bro? He had two of them actually back to back. The matches he had with Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns on
Yeah.
SmackDown.
Yeah.
Dude, after that, I was like, how he literally got himself over by just doing the in-ring stuff. And I don't realize that. I don't think WWE or Vince McMahon realizes that, bro. People can get over by just wrestling. That is a thing. Not everybody has to be in this crazy storyline. Not everybody has to have this wild character. Some people can literally just go out there and wrestle or cut a promo, and then they will be able to get over. Transitioning from that just real quick. Example A, this past Tuesday, I haven't seen Adam Cole in months. I was not interested in Adam Cole for quite some time. This dude came back and he obliterated Karrion Kross to a point that I think it kind of did some damage to the Kross character, but we could get to that later. But instantly, Adam Cole, his promo on Kross got me hooked back into Adam Cole. And I kind of want to see him win the title again, but you know what? I'm gonna hold off on that. I think they should keep going with Kross just because I don't like the constant title switching. But going back to Murphy, like Murphy, I think he's going to be like one of the breakout talent of this group that got released from WWE, because I think he's going to be hitting so many independent promotions. I can see Murphy in a GCW going up against Leo Rush. Like, now they have the sometimes they at Georgia and other spring break shows, like they always have that one match on the card that's like the workhorse match that's outside of like the normality of what you think a spring break is. And it, like, I remember last time it was Lee Moriarty versus Jonathan Gresham. Like, I feel like Murphy could be up there mixing it up, but like somebody who's like very known technically in wrestling, like I think he's gonna hit like every independent promotion out there. Like he is like a really great wrestler, and I don't think a lot of people really understand how great he is. And I think the option of him, wrestling Omega is like very enticing to me because of the whole, him doing the pump knee V trigger type thing and saying that stuff on Twitter and stuff like that. Like, dude, Murphy is going to have a hell of a year. Like once he, gets the ball rolling. Like out of every, okay, so this is subjective, of course, but like out of everybody in this group, I think he's the best wrestler.
Calling your shot. I mean, I don't listen. If you talk about just in ring stuff, like I
Yeah,
think you can certainly make that argument. I don't. I would not. You could certainly. I mean, like I said, you could bring up Aleister Black, I think, and kind of look at that. But I think that's your competition in that argument. And I,
mhm.
like I said,
You
I
go out
can't
the way.
say. Yeah, I mean, I think you could, and I think that's a very good point. In terms of because it's about fit for people too when they're released. You got to find the right fit, and for him someone who is so good in the ring. I mean, we know like AEW is kind of that company that has pretty much prided itself on, yes, you have good characters, you have something that people can identify with, but at the same time, you've got a hell of a group of wrestlers, and I think adding someone like him to the mix, like you said, would not be bad at all. And we know, I mean, AEW's got a lot of room for content, and they've got Rampage now and all this other stuff, so that they've
Yeah.
got options, right? So that's potential. So
Like I said, I was gonna ask you, Blake, what you think about the I had brought this up a couple days ago and was talking to somebody about this. I was wondering what you think about it. Like, what do you think about Tom Phillips being brought in as the uh I know Tony Khan said that there was gonna be a wrestler that was gonna be hosting the
yeah.
beside Mark Henry that was gonna be hosting the Rampage show. But what would you think about the idea of Tom Phillips hosting that show and then eventually going on to replace Jim Ross on Dynamite with Tony and being with Tony Schiavone and Excalibur?
I was gonna say we forget about the other releases as of late with Tom Phillips, who was not also released from WWE, and I've always liked Tom Phillips. Like I think that
Right?
I don't want to, and I don't mean this, I don't want to call him Michael Cole, but like you always felt like that he was like that next
Yes.
sort of an evolved version of Michael Cole, and I think Michael Cole again. I have no idea how the hell this guy's done this job for as long as he has with Vince McMahon in his ear, and I have no idea, but I've always felt like Tom Phillips was someone that did a good job. You felt like he was kind of made for that role. So I mean, he's another one. I don't think you're gonna, he will have opportunities, and like we said, it's crazy when you just go up and down the line of the list of potential companies that are out there, and if we're getting closer to returning to normal here with fans and normal type shows, and there's just so many companies. We haven't mentioned like an MLW and places like that. Like there are so
Yeah.
many different possibilities, and I think for him, like you said, I mean, I think he's someone that would be valuable if you're looking to really sort of promote talent and put him in that role because he's still fairly young, so it's like he's got a voice that people I think can identify with too. So yeah, I mean Tom Phillips is another one that, as we said, not necessarily part of this group today as we're recording has been released, but he was also one that was recently released. And the only other one, Andrew, before we get into another topic quickly about what's actually next for WWE as a whole, Santana Garrett was released. I don't really know that she's someone that we've seen in a variety of companies over the years, but from a WWE standpoint, there's not a lot there aside from just some stuff she did in NXT and really not a whole lot else, I guess you could say. But all right, Andrew, we'll wrap up with this WWE. The speculation we talked about all these releases. Um, I don't really. I think you kind of look at this, and there's a lot of speculation about, okay, what do these moves mean coming off the heels of the moves they made on April 15th, which were followed up by other moves they've made in office positions, basically cleaning house in WWE studios, all sorts of production moves they've made. A lot of consolidating, it seems, of, getting rid of certain positions. Of course, the move to Peacock, you have a lot of WWE network type positions that have been eliminated. There's a lot of restructuring in WWE right now. And I know there have been some rumors, and I think it's just mostly speculation at this point. There's not, hardcore reports of anyone thinking this is actually necessarily happening or anything. But I can see how people would connect the dots and wonder, do these moves mean that WWE is actually considering a potential sale? Is Vince really wanting to get out of this? Here's my thing. I I can remember back starting watching wrestling as a young child, and the one constant that has always been there has been Vince McMahon. Over the years, whether thinking that WCW was going to put him out of business, to all the other stuff that's come along with it. You can go back to like the steroid trial and everything, in the early '90s.
Hmm.
There have been a lot of points where you think that Vince McMahon may not be in wrestling anymore. But somehow this guy has continued to stay in it. And yes, when they brought in Nick Khan, you've seen some interesting moves to say the least. Nick Khan has come in and basically put his fingerprint on a lot of stuff, and he's made a lot of moves that have from a business standpoint make you curious. Is this something that WWE could consider? I think it's a fascinating question. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen right now. Do I think it's something that WWE could leave open as an option? Absolutely, because we know there would be a lot of money in that for a service that basically serves as a. I mean, look at all the live content. Live content is everything at this point when you talk about what some of these services want, whether that's NBC, whether it's Fox and Amazon. Everyone wants live content because that is where you can make your money, and you can do a lot of stuff with that. But I don't see it happening right now, Andrew. But I do think it's a discussion that's going to continue based on these types of moves that are being made in that company.
Yeah, like you just said, I don't think that Vince McMahon is going to sell the WWE. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think the conversation is interesting, right? Like it's an interesting conversation to have, and some fun to entertain, just to converse about. But when you do look at the moves that Nick Khan has been a part of or has made, it really does make you think. Like I talked to you about about it. Like I don't know if this was his doing, but I mean, he obviously got put on the board of directors, and then another member of the board of directors. He used to be the president of Turner Entertainment Networks, and they oversaw TNT, TBS, and I think that's very interesting. And one of the other guys they brought in for one of the board of directors, he's like the CEO of the Atlanta Hawks, and for the State Farm Arena and stuff like that. Like bringing in these real sports savvy like people that have done this like business stuff like at a very high level and have experience in like multiple departments of this of this business thing that we probably can't even fully break down within but maybe even an hour of a podcast. It probably take us longer than that to probably go through everything. But yeah, man, it looks like Nick Khan is like very sports centered. Like, I guess not, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And like because we got Jimmy Smith in there from Bellator doing it. You had an Adnan Vert. Um, you got Pat McAfee. You know what I'm saying? Like I still think he counts as that sports type of person. I think Pat is just more energetic than the other two I just mentioned. And yeah, like it is an interesting conversation, man. Like I can't see Vince selling the company. Like I got the only thing I can see that is like if Vince think this thing about this thing about the sink, he ain't gonna be on it when it does. So like that's like the only thing I can see happening. And like I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. If WWE were to sell, like I just don't. I give it another 10, 15 years, bro. Like I just can't see. Like I feel like it needs to be under the operation of a like if past Vince, immediately look to Stephanie, Triple H, Shane, maybe Bruce Pritchard, I guess because he's been around Vince so long. Like, I can't see him like just being like, let's sell this thing. But the moves that have been made and all the cost cutting has really made me, it makes you think. But another option that I was thinking about was maybe because they are going to be returning on the road soon. I was wondering how they are going to go about travel with the talents because I'm pretty sure, like especially coming out of that. But I mean, it didn't change after that. But do you remember that interview that Bailey did with FS1 when the interviewer was surprised that talents would like have to get rent a cars and drive
right.
from, yeah, like that was like hella embarrassing for WWE. And didn't they delete that tweet? Like didn't that tweet get taken down?
I think so, but
Yeah,
that was, gosh, when was that? I guess it was last year sometime, wasn't it? At some
that's it.
point. Yeah,
That had to be 2019, I think.
maybe. Yeah.
But but yeah, yeah, man. Like maybe they are looking to put that money into more, I guess, fitting travel plans for the talents. Like maybe they, just strictly fights, I guess, or making sure they don't have to go travel car like city to city in a cooped up in a car or anything like that. So maybe that could be part of it, as WWE prepares to get back on the road in July. But I don't think we will ever fully know. But I like one thing that's constant is like after every one of these releases, they have these the quarterly calls, and they always the number or the revenue that WWE has made is never they never show no change. So I'm just curious as to why all these moves have been made in the rapid pace that they have been made. But yeah, it's just interesting to talk about and interesting to see. And Nick Khan is definitely leaving his footprint, on WWE.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, and like we said, Nick Khan is, I think, the big name in this, in terms of they brought him in for a reason. We've seen a lot of restructuring since that, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's easy to connect the dots and sort of say, well, they're making all these moves in a pretty quick period if you think about it. I mean, again, we go back to whatever. I mean, you go back to mid-April, and then we've seen all the staff moves and cuts and everything like that, and now we're seeing another round of releases that involve what we assume are maybe potentially bigger contracts and that sort of stuff. So either Nick Khan was brought in to basically say we want to be a lean, mean, fighting machine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get rid of anything we can to get to that point, or hey, let's do this and also consider that leave open the option that if we wanted to potentially get out or sell, we have that avenue. And I think if you look at it, that I can understand why someone would believe that could be a
Right.
part of the motivation, because as we know, and we said it, Andrew, I mean, it's just the amount of money that a company like this that produces, the amount of live content that they produce, and with all the audience, and I mean, we're talking about this, and knowing that the Raw viewership just came out not long ago. I think it was PW Torch that reported, that this would be, I think it was, I don't know, probably the lowest viewership all time for Raw this past week.
But that show is bad.
Well, and that's the thing is you look at it, but aside from when, and we know, like, now we're in the period of NBA playoffs and all this other stuff, and there's always an excuse you can make for, okay, well, the Raw ratings down because of this, or the Raw ratings down because of that. The product itself is not good. Just, I mean, Raw. It's sometimes I think you look at Raw and you wonder, how does that company produce the same thing that is produced on SmackDown? Of course, there's difference when you look at 3 hours, 2 hours, but there are drastic differences, I think, overall. And, this viewership decline is something that's been happening for years, but I think it's also one where if you're WWE and you're wanting to be in a position to sell or something, if you're even considering that, this is not something you want. Like, potential, your value is only going down if your viewership's going down. So, I don't know. I think it is an interesting discussion, and I can see why people, find it curious just with all the moves that have been made. And specifically, I think since Nick Khan came in, there's been a lot of restructuring, as we said, whether it's, administration stuff, whether it's an actual roster standpoint. But there's a lot going on behind the scenes, it seems like, in WWE right now. So it should make for a pretty fascinating situation moving forward, if that speculation continues of, Vince actually getting out. But as you said, Vince is really the only thing you've ever known. Like, I mean, really, when you go back to it, like, Vince is that constant. And at this point, I'm someone that my stance on it is I have to believe it to see it, because I don't necessarily believe it right now.
No, I agree, man. 100%.
Yeah, so that is where things are at with WWE. Boy, there have been times in WWE where we have looked up and said, man, there's just not a whole lot going on the summer after WrestleMania. It's just kind of that lull. But man, Andrew, there has been a lot happening after WrestleMania this year, and hopefully not in the same trend of people getting released, but it's a wild time in WWE right now. But Andrew, I know you have been a busy man as well with everything you guys have got going on over at Post Wrestling, but also with your Andrew Thompson Interviews channel, which, as I hinted at earlier, you had a great interview recently with the one and only Double J, Jeff Jarrett. So let everybody know where they can find all that, and obviously anything else you got coming up on there.
Yeah, everybody can, of course, follow me on Twitter at AD Thompson__. You check out all my written work over at postwrestling.com. And of course, on the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel, always putting up, clips from interviews and putting up new interviews up as well. As Blake graciously mentioned, just had one with Jeff Jarrett up on the site. And then next week I will also have a interview that I can say is probably my favorite that I've done of all time. Extremely proud of this. It's an hour long with a wrestler who has been in New Japan and WWE within the last 5 years,
Uh-oh.
and he has never told his story, so it's a good one, and he has had a long career. So I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this one. It's for sure one of my favorite interviews to date. So I'm looking forward to putting that out and for people to actually see who it is. That's my tease right there.
Andrew's going to have me doing some research after this to put together a spreadsheet, roster, start eliminating potential candidates. But yes, check out all that stuff. As always, we'll have the links to all of Andrew's stuff in the show notes. And you can find all of his interviews over there. And as always, as well, we will have the link to the GoFundMe for Larry Zonka's family in the show notes. So you please continue to share and contribute if you can. Everything else, 411mania.com. Check it all out. Obviously, lots of coverage over there right now on all the WWE releases and all the fallout from that. So thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast, and we'll talk to you next time here on the 411 on Wrestling Podcast.